Hello, lionheart. Welcome back to the UNCAGED Me, where virtuous women are dominating in their purpose, their passions, and their purity today, because Jesus didn't save us on layaway, right? He paid full price for us to live full lives. So we are all about that life around here. And I'm Robyn-Ann, your fierce faith cheerleader. And I wanted to pop in and share 3 things that you're probably doing which are keeping you struggling with purity. So if this is an area that you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm trying to overcome, definitely examine your life to see if these 3 things, these 3 mindsets, these 3 beliefs are kind of what's controlling how you're operating. And if so, it's time to nip them in the bud, because they do not feed a pure lifestyle. So I'm gonna make it quick. The first one that we tend to do or believe, which keeps us struggling with purity, is one, we see purity as what we can't do instead of what we are free to do. And a lot of times it's because, of course, we know that a big part of being able to live out a life just free from the consequences of sin, the slavery, the shame, the guilt that comes from sinful habits and from sexually impure habits or thoughts, is obviously you have to cut some things out, right? You have to stop returning to your vomit. You have to stop repeating the things that keep getting you, in those positions of shame and guilt. But too many times, that's where we stop. Like, we just see or hear the things that, okay, we need to refrain from, we need to abstain from, we need to, all the words about staying far and not doing those things. And we stop there and we think that's the extent of purity, that how well that I can abstain and not do or touch anything wrong, is the level of how well I'm doing with purity. And if that's where you cap yourself off at, you're going to find that you keep being unsuccessful and even keep returning to certain habits, and you can't figure out why. You're going to be like, why do I keep going back to this even though I know it's wrong and I know God wants me to stay away from this and I know it's not good for me? Why do I keep returning to it, right? But it's because you weren't meant to stop there. You weren't meant to not do. You weren't meant to live for don'ts. You were created in the image of a powerful God, a pleasurous God. And so you were made for do's. You were made for purpose. You were made to enjoy things, to do and see and create things. And so when you make your focus all about what you can't do, you're not going to be satisfied and you're not going to be able to stay there for too long. And so that's why you go back to certain things that you remembered at least that you could do. They weren't the right things, but you go back to them. And so the key here, one, is changing your mindset. You have to realize that purity is not a list of don'ts. Purity is the freedom you now have to enjoy your God. Like, that is it. Matthew 5 tells us, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And the Psalms tell us that, God has set aside the godly or the pure for himself. So a lifestyle of purity is just the beginning and the invitation into friendship with God. Guys, like, who would sleep on that, right? Why do we stop at what we can't do when that is just the doorway to this huge house of things to do, things to enjoy, things to go feast on, things to eat, and things that God is like, you can now share with me. I can now share certain things with you. Because before, when we decided or told God we don't want his presence to be all up in our business because of things we wanted to go do in the dark, there's just things we're just not going to experience, since we were outside of God's presence, outside of his ways, outside of how he does things, right? But now he's like, I sent Jesus to set you free so that you can now enjoy me. You can enjoy intimacy with me. You can enjoy my secrets. I can share my thoughts with you. I can share my heart with you. We can think of solutions together. We can create things together. We can go execute, and serve people together and really transform hearts, transform cities, transform cultures. So many things that we are now free to do hand in hand with God. We cannot reduce that to what I can no longer do, right? Like, we've got to shift that mindset. So that's the first thing. Like, purity is not a list of don'ts. You have to shift to realizing purity is what I now get to do with God, and I'm going to find those things out. I'm going to cry out for more of his presence, and I'm going to cry out for more pleasure. Not even just things to do, but pleasure. That's the biggest thing. We think a lot of times that God can't handle those cravings anymore. That he can't handle those hormones that are going crazy inside of us, when it's like, he made them. God's like, if anybody knows what to do with them and how to, show you how to take control of them and how to use them for what they were intended for, it's me. God's like, I gave you those desires because, again, I made you for pleasure. Eden means pleasure because that's where God intended us to live. In the beginning, when he created Adam, he put him in a garden named pleasure with things to enjoy. And even though that, we lost, that experience with the fall when Adam sinned, now that Jesus, is now the second Adam who's restoring us to God, we've now been restored back to that original design and purpose of pleasure, living for things that please us, living for things that please God, living for things that please our spirit man, and pleasures that are lasting. Because that's the thing. Obviously, in the world, they are temporary pleasures. But because they're so temporary, we have to keep either going, just crossing boundaries and lines to keep getting that high every time, or they just completely damage us because they weren't meant to fill that infinite desire for pleasure that we were made for. We were wired infinitely to just crave continuous pleasure. We have an infinite imagination and things we think of. So when it's outside of an infinite God, it gets into just really dark places in these weary attempts to satisfy that infinite whole, right? But an infinite desire can only be satisfied by an infinite God. So just take those desires to God. He's not intimidated by your sexual cravings. He's not intimidated, by things you're hoping for. Bring them to him. Bring them to him. He is a source of pleasure. And so a lot of times in the beginning, why it's so hard is all you knew was this form of pleasure that obviously was unhealthy, right? And so now that you get into the kingdom, a lot of times many people think, well, this isn't fun. I can't see anything fun that I would really enjoy here. But it's just that your taste buds have been warped, right? And you almost have to get your taste buds renewed. You have to get your mindset renewed. And so, the best way to do that is with the word. The Bible tells us that, be renewed, that we have to allow our minds to be reformed and renewed by the word. That's Romans 12, verse 1, I believe. So, definitely be transformed by the renewing of your mind and allow that to renew your taste buds and what you can now enjoy as pleasurable. Because now you've had it rewired the way it was originally intended to enjoy God's presence and everything that comes with that. I mean, it's a whole house. It's God. You cannot outdo the inventor of pleasure. And don't let the enemy lie to you about that, right? Okay. A couple verses that really help with that. I've kind of mentioned them a bit, but Psalm 34 verse 8 that I love. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. So again, once you've now rewired those taste buds in your mind, cry out and say, God, I want to taste you. I want to taste those things that I was now made to enjoy in you. Cry out and ask for it. Because he says, I will allow you to taste and see that I am good and that I am the original brand of pleasure, not the knockoff and the counterfeits that you've been turned into, right? So ask him. Another favorite of mine, I probably throw this verse everywhere, is Galatians 5:1. that it is for freedom that you've been set free. It is for freedom that you've been set free. It is for freedom that you've been set free. Not for boredom, not for lukewarm. He didn't set you free to go sit in a corner. It is for freedom that he set you free. Now, if you have now been set free to go be free, why go be bored, right? Why go be lukewarm? Why go be timid? Why? He's like, I've now set you free so that you can enjoy that freedom. So stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. The verse continues. So let's not allow anything to enslave us anymore when such a high price has paid for you to go be free. Go be free. Drop being bored. Drop being in a corner and thinking, oh man, all the things I can't do. It's time to go do. Go do, right? And ask God to show you those things if you're not sure. The second way, a lot of times that we keep struggling with purity is we believe that acting grown means that you have the right to privacy and independent living. Meaning I can do whatever I want because I'm now of age. I don't have to report to anyone. I don't have to tell anyone what I'm doing. I don't have to share my business with anybody, right? That's kind of what culture tells us. When you're now grown, you can just tell people that you'll do whatever you want. But again, God's ways are not our ways. And this is definitely one of those things that you're going to have to drop, this belief and this lifestyle habit, if you're going to successfully walk out purity. Because acting grown, is someone who's like, well, because I'm of age, I have the option to not tell anyone where I'm going or what I'm doing. And so I'm not going to. You can do that. Again, even God gives you that free will. But the Bible will let you know that that isn't smart. He actually says it's foolish. It's a foolish thing to do. And so why try to be a Christian? Why say you're a Christian and then do the opposite of what has been laid out for successful Christian living, right? And I know a lot of times we do it because we feel like, well, everybody's flawed. Everybody's hypocritical. Everybody is, can't be trusted. But again, like living in community is more for you than it is for them. And you're going to have to get over that. You're going to have to get over how imperfect your church is, how imperfect God's people is. Everybody's imperfect in the church and outside. We're human. But you have got to realize that living in the dark and in a corner with just your flesh and your mind and the enemy leaves you in a very bad state. You never want to be left in shady living in the corner with the enemy, because he is a master at deception and a master at completely twisting and seducing you and pulling you into places that you did not mean to end up. And so you want to bring yourself in the light, in the open, living in front of people, in front of men, letting it be known what you're doing and what you're about at all times. Because again, you don't care. This isn't for them. You don't care what they do with that information. It is for you to be in the light, because that's where the enemy loses his power. That's where he loses his grip and his authority, is when you already are living in the open, so he can't guilt trip you with things that, oh, what if they find out? Oh, it's like, I already live in the open. They already know. Yep, they already know this is where I'm going. They already know this is a guy I'm courting or talking to. Like a lot of the shady dating, even when I don't care if you're like, well, I don't know where this is going to end up, so I'm not going to tell anyone about this guy. Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out. This is not, it never, I see it all the time. Girls do this and then they end up in some shady positions and compromising things and relationships that weren't really relationships, that they ended up doing things in that they didn't mean to, because it was just they didn't want anyone to know until they figured out what it was. But hey, the best way to keep things in a non-relationship position, since they are still not a relationship, is to put it in the light. Tell someone, this is where I'm going, this is who I'm meeting, this is where I'll be back. Because a lot of times, if you can't even be honest and share that information with someone, then you probably shouldn't be going there and you probably shouldn't be doing it. You know what I mean? It's like a good way to just put yourself in check. And I had to learn that too. In the beginning, I had to realize this is This is something that is not even about, my parents and I'm living with my parents and why do I have to tell them? So they're going to be in my business and they're going to get on me and they're going to nag. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Again, this is to keep your spirit man guarded. Accountability and community and covering is to keep your spirit man guarded. This is where everything happens, your spirit man. So get over your reputation, get over your pride, and get over these things that don't matter and are keeping you stuck in these struggles, right? This is not about just what people are saying or keeping yourself, people out of your business. You've got to get past that. Being grown and mature is realizing that you have the responsibility to guard your life and guard the spirit that is on your life, and you cannot leave yourself in compromising situations with the enemy, right? So game, like, we're gonna stop that. It doesn't matter if you live with a random roommate or if you live with your parents. Let them know what you're doing. Just make it a habit. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you're open about it. And yeah, it's going to be very uncomfortable at times, but it keeps you in check and it keeps you even keeping your own words. If you tell someone, this is where I'm going to be back by 10, now you have to live up to that, So even if you're out having a good time, to do that. Or even if it goes beyond that, you can just still let the person know, yeah, no, I said 10, I came on by 10:30 because XYZ. Live in the open. Believe me, it's going to save you a lot of foolishness and a lot of keeping just these same cycles where you're wondering why you can't get ahead with purity and you keep falling into the same traps, okay? All right. A couple verses that will really help with this is John 3, verse 21. But whoever does what is true comes to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God, right? Whoever is really doing what is true, if you're really so-called doing something that you're okay with, that God would be okay with. Here Jesus himself is speaking actually in this verse. Jesus himself is saying, you will be okay doing it in light, doing it in public, doing it before people, telling people what you're doing, okay? So that's a good way to check that if I'm really okay with it and if I really think God is okay with it, I'm going to just tell, and not allow, just that shady, living habit to take over my life. So John 3:21 is a really good one to just realize being grown and being a woman, a confident woman who just lives a pure life. She puts her life in the light, right? Second verse is Proverbs 18, verse 1. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire, and he breaks out against all sound judgment. In other words, the Bible's like, you're not wise. Whoever is trying to isolate himself, you're trying to do just what you want, and that's not wise. The opposite of wise, foolish, stupid. The Bible's like, you're stupid when you allow yourself to buy into the whole isolation thing, and that I'm okay by myself, and all I need is me and myself and I. Nope. That is the devil talking to you, because he loves to draw you out of community. That's where he works best, right? So drop that thinking. So quick recap. First thing keeping you struggling with purity is thinking and seeing purity as what you can't do. Instead, we're going to switch to seeing purity as what we are free to do, right? The second way is, instead of being, acting grown and thinking you have the right to independent living and privacy, you realize that true maturity and truly being grown is making yourself accountable to community and living in the light, right? And now the third thing that we're going to switch so it doesn't keep us struggling with purity is waiting till the temptation hits to fight the battle. A lot of times that is what we do. We are living completely lukewarm lives. We are not passionate about our purpose. We are not diligent about our time, about the word, about the weapons God's given us to fight with. And then, we get into these situations and we're like, oh, okay, this is where I'm gonna fight. This is where I'm gonna be like, I'm strong enough to handle it. This is where I'm gonna be like, oh, it's not that serious. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why? Why fool yourself into thinking that, sexual temptation is a battle that you are now going to have to fight, you know, like make yourself fight. And the Bible makes it very clear that when it comes to sexual immorality or that spirit of lust, this is not a battle that you want to get in the ring for. Like, this is a battle you fight it outside the ring. You're like, I'm not coming in the ring with you. I'm gonna fight it out here. I'm gonna win out here by going and living my life free from you. I don't have to come in the ring and prove how strong I am and how much I can handle this temptation, right? I mean, even Paul, who writes chapters and books about fighting and spiritual warfare and the armor of God, you know what he says when it comes to spiritual immorality? He's like, flee, run, do not get in the ring, no, escape. You know what I'm saying? Like, men of the Bible who got it, who really won in this area of purity, they were like, I am out of here. I will fight other battles about my character, the word, you know, greed. I mean, all these things. But when it comes to that area, they've realized this is not one for you to stand up and fight and show how strong you are and get in the ring and huff and puff. They ran. They ran. The story of Joseph, we know it so well. You know, he is in Potiphar's house in Egypt. He is just put in charge of so many things, but he's a handsome young man, and the wife sees him and starts trying to seduce him and keeps trying to woo him to sleep with her. And, you know, Joseph is putting her off, like, nah, chick, you're not gonna mess up what God has going for me. But she catches him in the house once where, you know, it's just him. And so she's like, oh, this is it. I'm going to make my move. And she comes after him. And Joseph is like, you know what? Guys, it's so hilarious. That thing said this grown man ran, left his coat. Just ran. That's how serious this is. So, you know, you have strong men like Joseph, Paul saying run. And you think you're stronger? You think you're wiser than these men of God? No, let's change that right now. Do not put yourself in these situations, these late night hangouts, these going over their house, no. Get out of the ring. Get out of the ring. I'm so serious. Get out of the ring and save yourself the foolishness of trying to go up against, you know, these spiritual demons. It's like, stop. Stop. Don't do it. Right? And if even mightier men, Solomon, I mean, the man was so wise, accomplished so many things for the Lord, and yet, you know, we're told that because of this area of compromising and just going after women outside of the boundaries God laid out, it said they drew his heart away from God. They drew his heart away from God. That's 1 Kings 11. They completely drew his heart away from the Lord. A man who was just strong in so many areas, a mighty king who accomplished more than you ever will in your entire lifetime. He was pulled away because he decided he could get in the ring and handle marrying women outside of God's design, right? Don't do that. Don't do it. You know, another example, Samson. You know, mighty man again, accomplishing a whole lot for the Lord, you know. What I'm saying, set aside his life and was just, nobody could touch him. No one could handle him until, again, he went outside of the guidelines God had set up for dating and courtship and started messing around with this Philistine woman. And she surely took him down. You know what I'm saying? That's in Judges 16. So we have got to shed these habits and these mindsets that keep us stuck in purity. There is so much more to this than just struggling. There really is. God wants you pure because he finally wants you being able to enjoy your freedom in Christ. And we have got to get over these small things that are keeping us stuck, and realize, you know, the good thing about purity is it reveals that whether or not you're really enjoying your Christian walk or not. Because I mean, when I was just living that lukewarm Christian, you know, type of lifestyle, going to church, and, you know, everybody saw me as a nice, good girl who loved the Lord, but I wasn't really passionate. I wasn't all in. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't all in with the Lord. And as a result, I wasn't all in getting my pleasure satisfied. I wasn't all in after my purpose. I wasn't all in on the offensive. I wasn't all in, you know, with sharpening myself in the word and in the spirit and enjoying God's presence. And as a result, that pornography struggle came right up and was like, well, if you're not going to go all in, I know you're made for pleasure. So I know if you're not getting satisfied in the Lord, it's going to be very easy to pull you into this ring and overpower you in that ring. And that's what happened. You know what I'm saying? So even though, man, that struggle with my porn addiction was one of the worst things ever, it really forced me into my true identity of what does it mean to be Christian, and why, like like what do I have against, this, what do you call it, like how can I win in this area. Like I had to get serious and say, what are the weapons that I have to fight this. Like, what is the point of my salvation if I'm going to be addicted to this? And I had to get real up close and personal in God's face and be like, I want everything that you said I'm supposed to have as a Christian woman. I want all of this, because I'm not going to keep living as this Christian in church and behind the doors I'm struggling like crazy. I was like, nah, bruh. And it forced me to go fully in, just get all in with the Lord. And so a lot of times we see these struggles and we're like, why does God permit it? He just wants us to finally just get real, get committed, take him seriously, come for what he says is ours in him. Come, go all in for it, and stop just playing, one foot in, one foot out, asking yourself how close you can get to the ring, and not get beat up, how close you can get to compromise and not slip, how close you can get to messing around with this guy and not fall in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, God's like, I just want you to cut the foolishness. And so I permit it, where a lot of times you get tripped up once you start sliding into that ring, because he's like, stay out of that ring. Stay out of the things I didn't call you into, and run after everything I have for you. It's a whole house. I have everything you need. I can train you for warfare. I can train you to be satisfied. I can train you to go after your purpose. I can train you to, just accomplish great things in me. I can train you to get the solutions that you're looking for. I can train you to get the provision and the wealth that you're needing to go after your goals. And God's like, come to me for everything, and come with all of you. You know what I mean? So I can keep going on and on and on about that, but let's really get practical ways to really fight this battle outside of the ring. Is just one, denying your flesh, so that your spirit man can really be the boss, and you can show your flesh who is the boss. You can't have the whole time you're allowing your flesh to just throw the tantrum and run the house, and then when it comes to purity, you're wondering why you're losing, right? Like, you have to, throughout your, all areas of your life, put the spirit man in charge, and when your flesh is throwing a tantrum, tell it to shut up. Like, you're a child, sit down. You are not the priority here. You do not run the house. We don't let children run the house, right? And so you empower and give your spirit man permission to be in control all the time, to pursue the things of God all the time over the things of what your flesh is wanting, right? Fasting is a good way to do that, where you just deny your flesh, certain types of foods or certain type of pleasures, so that you can spend some time enjoying God and allowing your spirit man to go after God and crave what it's really craving, because your spirit man is craving it. Well, a lot of times you can't even sense that hunger, because you're just responding to everything your flesh is just throwing a tantrum for. Like, I'm hungry. I want entertainment. I want to look at, Facebook. As soon as you can pull yourself away from that, man, you're going to see that your spirit man's hungry, is ready to eat, feast, be in charge, and you can allow it to do that. That's one way that you really win. And another way is just renewing your mind with the word and keeping your mind full and feasting on the word of God, because the word has just so much, right? And it really keeps, just another way of just keeping yourself, again, living by the Spirit, and how God thinks, and how he has wired you for pleasure, and how he has wired you for success, and how he has wired you to be free to run. And so once you're focused on that, you don't even have time for what's happening in that ring. You're like, I'm not gonna put myself in those situations. I'm busy over here winning. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like this video is long. I'm gonna wrap it up. 2 verses. that really talk about that. I mentioned them before. Flee from sexual immorality. That's the 1 Corinthians 6:18. And then Genesis 39:12 is the verse that talks about Joseph running and leaving his cloak behind when he was being seduced. So we realize with those battles, we are told by the Bible to run. We do not fight them and get in the ring and try to fight the battle there. You fight the battle before you even get to that temptation, so you're strong enough to flee. To flee. And that's it. I mean, I just want to again encourage us as confident women. This is a key area of purity, and if you're constantly struggling with this area, it's going to be very hard to cultivate a confident lifestyle. So let us live pure, let us live empowered, let us live free to enjoy our friendship with God and the purposes and the pleasure that He's called us to, right? I cannot wait to see you next week. All right, bye.